Hey guys, welcome back to some more reviews. The Explorer of Horror here, the Horror Boy, and today we're getting to Friday the 13th Part 2, The Body Count Continues, which came out in 1981, gets a 6.1 on IMDb, directed by Stephen Miner, who is a director that I actually enjoy quite a bit. Big fan of Warlock. It's a movie that nobody talks about, but I actually really enjoy that film. Of course, he directed this movie as well as Part 3, which, big fan of both movies. Lake Placid is a film that I really enjoy. I'll be honest though, not a fan of Halloween H2O at all. It's a very overrated Halloween movie in my opinion. And Day of the Dead the remake is just such a rough movie. It's just, those are really two bad movies. He also made House, which I'd never seen before, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. I actually was one night going to watch it, but I never got around to seeing it. So maybe one day I'll watch and review House. As well as House 2, there's a second movie which gets a lot of praise as well. But yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 came out a year later. And around this time, 1981, it was just such a great year for slasher films. I think My Bloody Valentine came out this year. I think Prom Night came out the year before. It came out 1980, I think. Maybe it was 81. I think it was 1980, though. But 81 was a great year. I mean, by that time, you were having so many classics coming out. Like, so many great slasher films coming out in 1981. It was just a great, great year. But I'm a big fan of Part 2. Huge fan of it. For many reasons. I think in this instance, the series... Like, if you want to study how you make a good sequel, I think you need to watch this... and Part 4, and in my opinion, Part 5. Like, okay, let's say you made a horror film that was a big hit and you want to make a great sequel. I would watch Friday the 13th Part 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, Halloween 2. There are those really, really, really great sequels out there. And I just think this is one of them, man. This is definitely one of the best sequels to me. And that's for a lot of reasons, man. I mean, you have... First of all, let's get into the story. The movie opens up with Adrienne Keene playing Alice from the first movie. She's having a flashback of the ending and pretty much saying, it's pretty much the end of the first movie. And you have some shots on the outside of somebody walking around. She's walking around her house, and when she opens up her fridge, there's a head in there of Mrs. Voorhees, and you see a hand come up with an ice pick and stab her right in the head. And then, boom, the titles and the explosion, just really, really amazing. Great title sequence with a great theme song, too. I love this theme song. Like, these first 5 movies have some really good themes on it. They're all very, very different, and they all sound great. But this one has a very good opening titles. And pretty much after that, you have new characters go into this camp. It's not Crystal Lake anymore. It's actually like a camp, like I think next to it. But it's this new camp, which I can't believe. It's called Packanack Lodge, which is really near the Camp Crystal Lake known as Camp Blood. And basically there are these teens there. They're getting ready for this camp to get opened. You have your lead characters, Amy Steele playing Jenny. Amy Steele is, without a doubt, one of my favorite leads from this series. She is just fantastic in this movie, man. I mean, she is really... If I had to narrow it down, I would say it's either her or Adrienne Keene are my favorite leads. The girl from Part 4 was great. The girl from Part 5 was alright. I used to give her a lot of crap, but I think she's actually pretty decent in that movie now. But to be honest though, man, I wasn't a fan of Tina. I know I'm alone in that, which we'll get to that later, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Tina. I wasn't the biggest fan of the girl from Part 8. I wasn't a fan of the girl from Part 9. And the girl from Part 6 was alright. But easily, man, Amy Steele is just one of the best leads. And you have a great picture of her right there with the pitchfork. Pretty cool. But you also have John Fury playing Paul, which is a great lead as well. Does a solid acting job. Has a great scene where he's telling the legend of Jason Voorhees And it's just such a really, really great scene. And the dialogue in that scene, the music and the camera work, the slow pan around the campfire, just like classic, utter classic stuff. Um, and pretty much this new camp is opened. It's near Camp Crystal Lake. Some of these kids wander off into Camp Blood. A cop finds them in there, tells them to go back, you know, pretty much Paul is the leader of this camp, tells them that they need to be disciplined a little bit more often. And this cop ends up seeing somebody running, and he goes back into the woods, and he gets killed as well. And pretty much, these kids start up Jason, and Jason goes to Packanack Lodge and starts killing people off one by one. Very basic, simple, to the point slasher film. But the reason why I love part 2 so much, I would even say love this more than part 1. It's one of those instances where like part 2 is like, you know, and part 4 and then part 5, they each get better and better as they go on. And I don't get me wrong, part 3 is a great movie, but we'll get to my opinion on part 3. I still love part 3 though. But part 2, I think, is just filmed very well. It has that great atmosphere of the camp where, you know, during the day it's just beautiful to look at, you know, practical, on location type stuff, no sets. At least I couldn't really recognize any sets. Everything like it was on location at a real camp at a real lake. Looked great. Looked like a real summer camp. I thought the characters were really well done. Like I said, Amy Steele and John Fury are great leads, but you also have some really good side characters. Like you have Stuart Charno playing Ted. Big fan of the guy, really cool guy. Played this character very well. You know, he was a jokester kind of guy, kind of like the Ned guy from the original movie, in the first movie. This guy's the jokester of this movie, and he's pretty cool. You have, I think, Mark Tom McBride, who is this paralyzed guy. Pretty decent character. You have your decent little side character as well, so the cast does their job well. They're a decent cast. Acting is fairly decent, nothing too groundbreaking, but then again, nothing horrible. Just, you know, decent, you know, for what it is. I love this underrated look for Jason, which is right here, the sack head look, which this movie, of course, is the very first movie that features Jason. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think, oh yeah, it's, you know, Friday the 13th, he's in every single one of the movies. Technically speaking, he's not. There's 2 movies with 2 different killers in them than Jason. The first one is his mom, and the 5th one is Roy. Of course, the Roy one really surprises people. But yeah, man, I like the way it's shot. I love the score. Once again, Harry Manfredini, big fan of him in this franchise. Some great scores. I think, you know, as a part 2, it does very well. It does that thing that, you know, most sequels would do afterwards, where, you know how Jason goes back and kills Adrian Keene, the lead from the last movie. How many horror films have done that since? How many slasher films have done that since, where the killer goes back and kills the person from the original movie in part 2? That's been done so many times in the future. But yeah, part 2 definitely did that. I know that this look, the sackhead look, is said to be inspired from the Town That Dreaded Sundown horror film, which came out in the 70s, which I haven't seen. I've seen the remake to it, and the remake was, I don't know, it wasn't really that great, but it wasn't really that horrible. I don't know, it was a weird movie. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. But I'd much rather watch the original, because I'm just very curious about it. But even though it's inspired, I still think it's a creepy look. I still love that look for Jason Voorhees. I think it's a great, awesome look. I'm glad that it wasn't just in this movie, that at least in the remake they tried doing that as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm a fan of that look. I think it's a great look. Creepy, the hillbilly Jason. I love the death scenes, man. When you have a death scene where a lot of traps in this movie, which is why when we get to the remake, I don't understand people saying, well, Jason wouldn't set traps. He has traps in this. He has traps in 3 and 4. So, like, why is it a big deal he sets traps up? He does it in these movies. People are like, well, he runs. He runs in these movies. 1, 2, no, not in 1, obviously, but 2, 3, 4, he sprints. And then, so he runs in, 2, 3, and 4. So that's why I was always like, I don't understand that. He does traps in the originals, and he runs in the original movies. Like, I don't understand that. I get it, he became a zombie, but it's whatever, man. It's whatever. If you don't like it, that's fine. Um, but yeah, you have the Mark death scene where he's in the wheelchair and gets a machete right here in the face, and it's just gory and it's a great effect. And he goes rolling down the stairs, zoom in, white out, which is a great touch. The couple is having, sex. They're on this bed. And I guess there was a movie called Twitch of the Death Knight, which is, before this movie, where Jason grabs a spear and shoves it through both at the same time. Double kill. Great scene. There's a scene where, like I said, a guy gets hung upside down and slit throat. Girl gets stabbed with a kitchen knife. Crazy, the guy from the original movie, Crazy Ralph, Walt Gorney, he comes back in this movie, and there's a scene where he gets strangled against a tree. There's a scene where, I think that's about it, honestly. That's probably all the death scenes in this movie. But yeah, man, you have those great death scenes. You have a little bit of nudity in there. You have some pretty hot looking teens in this movie. Some pretty hot, teenager characters. You have some great scenes, man. Like the third act of this movie. The third act is actually really well done where, Paul fights Jason but gets knocked out and Amy still runs. And then Jason breaks to the window. She runs, opens the door. There's, Crazy Ralph that falls. She runs out the window, goes to the car. Jason is putting the pitchfork to the ceiling. She's fighting back. Amy still kicks ass in this movie. Breaks a chair over Jason. There's actually a really pretty smart scene where Jason acts like he leaves the room and Amy still is under the bed. And really, he's on a chair with the pitchfork. And the chair breaks and he falls. And, you have the great ending where they go to this, shack that Jason has. You have the classic shot of the monument with the Mrs. Voorhees head. And that great scene that Amy still does where she puts the sweater on, acts like Mrs. Voorhees, kind of tricks Jason. And, when Paul fights Jason again, she grabs a machete, just boom, right here into the shoulder. They unmask Jason, but you don't see it. And then they leave, they go back to this cabin, and when they think Jason's on the door, it's just a dog. But then Jason just shoots to the window. Great special effects. Great scare scene, because I remember being as a kid, that would legit scare me. As well as the first movie's jump scare. But he just jumps to the window. Great slow-mo. The scores. Great score. Just love that. Boom, that score kicks in, just intense. And Jason is all hillbilly looking, long hair, all deformed looking, takes her, drags her out. And then you have an ending that's really, really weird because it's never touched on in any other Friday the 13th movies where, Paul disappeared. And you have no idea where he went. Because it's implied that Jason jumping into the window was a dream scene. Because, Amy still wakes up and asks, where's Paul? And even if you said, well, that wasn't a dream, he's let her live, it's like, Jason just let her live? He just said, oh yeah, she's knocked out, I'll let her live, it's fine. I was just like, either way you look at it, doesn't really work that well. And you never know, where's Paul? That's the greatest mystery of this whole franchise, where's Paul? That and, Shelly's bag that has 1,000 things in it. How does he have 1,000 things in a little carry bag? But, definitely added on to the list of Friday the 13th mysteries. But, yeah, man, I love Part 2. I think it's a great film. Great. The way it's filmed is great. Some decent acting, decent characters. Just a fun time, man. I love Part 2 to death. Great sequel. You want to make a good sequel? Watch this. Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Or Halloween 2, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, and in my opinion, Part 3. Yeah, those are how you do really great sequels. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching my review on Friday the 13th Part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. The Explorer of Horror is out. See you guys later.